So South Africa's motorists may face further driving license renewal headaches. It's all because the card machine that produces the licenses has broken. We're joined for more detail on this by Leighton Beard, Automobile Association spokesperson. Leighton, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. So unfortunately, we were unable to get hold of the Department of Transport by the time of going on air. But what do you know about this story? Is it as simple as a machine breaking down?
Yeah, it is as simple as a machine breaking down, but the consequences of that are obviously quite complex and very severe for very many hundreds of thousands of people who are awaiting their driving license card. As far as we can ascertain, there was a flood in the room in which the printer that does these licenses is held. This happened between the 7th and the 17th of November. That caused problems to the driving license printing machine. There is only one, and I think there are a number of reasons why that process is centralized, and that's obviously resulted in a delay in the printing of these documents. Now, one of the things that concerns us is the fact that this wasn't communicated to the people who should be receiving these documents, or to the broader public for that matter. And at the moment, people are now just being advised to get temporary licenses, which obviously comes with an extra cost, and which is something that I'm sure very many people don't want to do.
Not at all. You propose that there may be reasons why the process is centralized, stating that there's only one machine, which is quite curious. What could those reasons be?
I think the fact that it's centralized has a lot to do with problems at the driving license testing centers. We've seen a lot of corruption at those centers. The DOT has been very proactive in trying to root out many of those problems. But I think you don't want to have a situation where the printing of license cards is farmed out to the DLTCs. You may find yourself in a worse position in terms of illegal driving license cards that are in circulation. It's not to say that we don't think there should be two machines around the country that process these things. It just makes the process obviously a lot easier. But the fact that we've got a problem with this machine and it is now probably going to only be fixed by the end of December means that the backlog of driving license cards being printed is going to go well into January 2022, added to the existing backlog. So I think we're going to be in a situation where people may have applied and may have gone through the tests and have done all the renewals that they needed to do, but don't physically have that card. There are obviously people that have got existing cards, and those will be valid for a period of time. Obviously, our concern then remains what happens to those people who then get stopped by traffic officials who say that the card is no longer valid. Are they going to be fined? Is there going to be a legal process that follows from that? So it is a very distressing situation, and one that we don't obviously think is going to be sorted very quickly. But it speaks to a broader issue, Gugu, and it's something that AA has been saying for a number of years. The process of obtaining not only driving license cards, but a raft of other documents that you need from driving license testing centers is very cumbersome, and the system that is used as the back end of this is old and needs to be replaced. You cannot repair it, you cannot fix it. The entire system needs to be taken out, and it needs to be replaced wholly. And that's something that we think needs to be done as a matter of urgency. And when you consider the fact that the Road Traffic Management Corporation, which is involved in many of these DLTCs, had a surplus of 262 million rand in 2020, it's not a question that the funds aren't there. It's a question of why are we not doing this sooner rather than later.
As I stated in the beginning of the interview, we're yet to hear from the Transport Department, and we'll definitely keep trying as we need to get some answers to the questions that you have raised. But I appreciate that you, by no stretch of the imagination, a legal expert, but what do South Africans do when they do get stopped, right, because they do not have their card?
So I think that obviously carry the card that you have, and you need to have proof that you've actually gone to renew that document. So our advice would be to keep that proof of payment and the documentation that you've applied for it with you wherever you go. If you are in a position to pay for and get a temporary license, it's not something that we want to see happen. But from a legal point of view, it may be your best recourse. So if you are able to do that, then get that as well. And if you are in a situation where things are becoming aggressive with a traffic officer, our advice is always to stand down to take whatever fines are issued to you and then to deal with it at a later stage. You're not going to resolve a problem on the side of the road, no matter where you are. So just deal with that situation by being calm. Take whatever documentation you need with you. Take whatever documentation is issued to you by the traffic officer and deal with it when you are in a better position to do so. You cannot deal with this on the side of the road. Don't attempt to deal with it on the side of the road. It's just going to escalate an already bad situation.
The situation on all fronts is quite curious, right? So this particular machine, given that we only have one, how old is it?
I don't know the correct answer to that. I think it is pretty old. As far as we can tell, it was bought from France somewhere in the 1990s. But it has been working. There are very many people who obviously are still receiving their driving license cards. But again, at the end of the day, it needs proper maintenance. It needs to be serviced on a regular basis. And you don't want to see issues like this cropping into the system. We still think that there is a better way of going about the issuing of driving licenses and renewals, and that is to entirely automate the process, take it online, make payments wholly online, make the entire process accessible from a cell phone or a smartphone or a computer, and that for us is the optimal solution to this problem. Will the printing still have to be done? I don't know. Maybe that's something that needs to be looked at in terms of how can we make the process a lot cheaper and more efficient, not for government, but for the public of South Africa.
And you believe that this needs to be seen in the greater context of the RTMC having a surplus of 262 billion rand in its 2020 financial year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when we look at the RTMC and the increase in fees that they're asking for transactions at DLTCs, we've already spoken out about our concern around the proposed fee increases. This is what people are paying for. This is what citizens are paying for, and they deserve better. And as the champion of South African consumers, the AA needs to raise these issues and say, but, what is happening with the money that is being spent already by consumers and motorists and road users, and are they seeing the benefit from it? When we see a very vital piece of equipment such as a printing machine that people rely on to get documentation not working and causing further backlogs, and by the way, causing further distress to very many people who now have to wait extra long to get these documents, or may have to go back in and out to see if they're ready or not because they're not receiving SMSs, then we have to raise these issues. And that's exactly what we're doing. We think the South African public deserves better. We think the RTMC, the DLTCs, the driving license card account which manages this machine, all of those entities and the Department of Transport need to give better to the motorists of South Africa and the citizens of South Africa, and that's the issue that we're raising with it.
Have you, Leighton, perhaps been successful in trying to engage the department?
I think we haven't spoken to the department on this specific issue. We do engage from time to time on other issues. But I think this again, like I said earlier, this speaks to the issue that we've raised before about the entire system and network that the driving license testing centers are using. It's antiquated and it's not functioning. And it takes forever to get an appointment. It takes forever to get processed when you get there. People waiting queues for hours and hours without being successful in many cases. And that, I think, is as a result of the fact that the system isn't working in favor of the motorists and in favor of consumers. So we have said, and I'll say it again, rip it out, replace it with something that's more efficient, and even better, take the entire system online. At the end of the day, consumers in South Africa deserve what they are paying for. And if we are paying a fee, we deserve the best that we can get. This, in our view, is not the best that we can get.
Automobile Association spokesperson Leighton Beard, a great pleasure. Thank you for your time this afternoon.